Hey guys, how's it going? You guys all set for Halloween and all that jazz? Man, I love Halloween. It is my favorite holiday of the year, and I'm so excited to dress up and stuff. And I don't know, do you guys have any ideas of what you're going to be for Halloween yet? No? Just as long as you get the candy at the end, right? Okay, so my name's Jen. I am a PhD student at the University of Toronto here in Mississauga. And I study stress and fear for starters. So let's see if this works. Hey, there we go. So like I said, I work with U of T as well as sick kids. I've loved science since I was a really little kid. I love understanding how things work and understanding how things like go along. That's a photo of me and my little cousin. She is testing out my invention of scuba gear that is made out of pop bottles. You can see she's super excited about it, but that's what younger siblings are for, isn't it? So I am a psychophysiologist. So what that means is that I look at psychology and behavior and why we do things from a physiological perspective. So I look at things like heart rate, I look at brains, I look at other like body-related things to understand how things work and how it relates to how we behave. In particular, I actually study police officers. So what I like to do is understand what helps police officers make better decisions, how do they make their decisions, how can we help make sure they stay healthy while they're working. And one of those ways is through heart rates, and might need to speak in. Through heart rates, and just as a little interesting things, as things I like to know about myself, this is a heart rate of me during an average presentation. As you can see, I am certainly qualified to tell you about stress and being afraid of things. I am a very nervous person, so it's kind of ironic that I study stress and fear myself. So what is fear? So strict definition, fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something is dangerous or likely to harm us. So even though this is a really uncomfortable feeling at times, like when we have to write a test or be up in front of everyone giving a presentation, it actually is kind of useful. Fear makes sure that we stay safe. So all of our ancestors before us have made sure that they were afraid of the right things so they could stay alive. So maybe they say, hey, maybe I shouldn't go near that cliff, or maybe I don't want to go over there because it could hurt me. And this kind of works into a way of something called fight or flight, and you want to get away from this situation and stay safe. So what are some of the things that we find scary? So one thing we find really scary is the dark. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot be in the dark alone by myself. I need as many lights on as possible. And it makes sense that we're afraid of the dark because when we are in the dark, we can't see things around us, and therefore we don't know if there's something dangerous that could hurt us. Things like spiders and snakes we can be afraid of because in our previous ancestry, spiders and snakes can be poisonous and venomous, and you might want to stay away from them, otherwise they could bite you. Fear of heights is something that we're all innately afraid of. You don't want to be too close to a cliff because if you fall, that could mean certain death. And it's really interesting because fear of heights is actually something even babies know. So this is a really cool experiment called the glass cliff experiment. So what they do is they create a platform with a glass box at the end that kind of makes it look like there's a cliff, even though the baby's super safe. And as the baby gets closer to the edge, they'll stop and they'll look down even though they can't tell there's glass in front of them, and they won't go down even when they have their parents saying, oh, it's okay, come over. They know as a baby that they should probably stay away from that edge. And one kind of weirder one, I'm not sure if you guys know what this is. So these are lotus seeds, and some people find this really creepy because of all the little holes and stuff. I don't know, it makes my skin crawl even finding photos of this, and I was like, ugh. And one reason that we might be afraid of things with lots of little clusters of holes is because it kind of looks like diseased flesh or something that's really sick and something we might want to stay away from. So that's kind of why it gives us the creepy crawlies. So that kind of explains things that are scary, that we're afraid of. What about things that are creepy? Creepy is a little bit weird because we're not going to get away from it, but at the same time we know something isn't quite right. So one common thing that a lot of people find creepy are things like dolls and clowns. I don't know about you, but I do not like clowns. I've never liked clowns. I don't care if they're making balloons. They're not fun. One possible reason that we're afraid of clowns is because their faces are covered. So as humans, we're really good at identifying faces and looking at a face and looking at, say, someone in the eyes and say, you're angry at me, or you're happy at me, or you're sad. And when you have things like painting over the face, or even like a simple mask, it kind of covers it up and makes it not so sure. And it's this kind of uncertainty of, I can't really tell what you look like or what you're trying to tell me, that makes you in a state of, I don't know if I should be afraid of you or if I'm safe. And that kind of creates that creepy feeling we feel that something's not quite right and I don't know quite know what. How many of you guys have seen the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog? Yeah, you saw it? So I don't know if you can see in this one, but he's kind of a cartoon that we all had as kids. And in the trailer, when they released it, they gave him teeth. And everyone on the internet was not about it. It was really creepy because we're not used to seeing Sonic the Hedgehog with teeth, and even so, like human teeth. So it kind of makes it really creepy and not what's quite going on there. So if you're facing something really scary, what do we do? So what is this fight or flight response that helps us stay safe and stay alive? So when we're afraid, we start breathing more. And this is because we want to get more more oxygen into our lungs. And we distribute that throughout our body using our heart. So our heart starts pumping faster. So when we get oxygen throughout our muscles, that helps feed our muscles to get ready to run away. Our pupils dilate, so they get bigger. That way we can see everything around us, kind of get better details, understand what's going on. And all of this kind of different kind of biological and body signals come together to help us decide whether or not this is something safe or something we could fight off or something we should run away from. So I could just tell you about all these different things, or I could show you, and in my opinion, the best examples are always with cat videos. So I have a cat video here of a cat watching a horror movie. Now the movie is Psycho. So just like for some people who are a little more creeped out by that kind of stuff, there is a skeleton in it. So depending on, you know, if you get nightmares easily like I do, maybe you might want to cover your eyes. But here we go. Whoop. I love that video so much. Yeah, so like you can see the cat, even though it may not really actually understand what's happening in the video, it's still kind of reacting to different cues if something isn't quite right. So it hears a sound of like this kind of really high-pitched, low sound that biologically speaking, we're not used to. It's a weird sound that's not found in nature so much, so it kind of puts us on edge. And you can see his little ears kind of like turning to try to find the source of the sound. And then you guys saw his pupils get like super big and trying to figure out what's going on. And finally, at the end, when the girl finds the skeleton, she screams, and that sound really scares the cat, so it jumps and runs away and decides, nope, I'm getting out of here. So that's like a really good all-around response to kind of see how like fear works and how we get ready for that response. So it's really important that when we're afraid of something, we're not just all the way ramped up. So we need to have the right amount of arousal. We need to be awake enough. So You know, you want to have just the right amount of heart rate, just the right amount of pupil dilation, just the right amount of breathing. It's kind of like Goldilocks, not too much, not too little. If you have the right amount, you're going to do really awesome stuff. You're going to have great focus, great decisions. You know, you're going to be like Jedi focused. You're going to be like Neville, getting the snake. I don't know if you guys watch Stranger Things, but, you know, lifting a truck over off everyone's heads. If you don't have enough arousal, or you're not, you know, hyped up enough from fear, you're not going to react as much. You might be a little sluggish. You may not make, you know, choices quick enough. And if you're too aroused, if you're too hyped up and your heart rate's too high, it's really hard to focus and make sure you make the right decisions, you know, making the difference of like finding there's a bad guy in your house and picking a banana instead of a knife. So there's different things, and you know, so a little bit of stress and a little bit of fear is good for us. It's a little healthy, make sure we stay safe. And sometimes for some people, that fear goes a little too far. So this can happen in disorders such as PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, phobias or anxiety. So this is what happens when our body can't kind of discern what is scary and what is safe. And that ability is really hard for some people. And I'm really interested in understanding what types of arousal lead to this and how we can possibly prevent this in the future. So all these kind of scary things, what is one way we get scared easily and constantly in horror movies? I don't know about you guys, but I have a love-hate relationship with horror movies. I really like watching them, but then after I watch them, I'm like really afraid and I don't want to turn off any of the lights, and you know, I need like a wooden spoon with me to protect me just in case. And horror movies have been with us a really long time. So you know, in the 1800s, we got horror movie books such as Frankenstein, or my favorite book, War of the Worlds, which is about aliens coming to Earth and taking over everything. And then we have really weird movies from the 50s, which is like Invasion of the Saucer Men, where we had these, it was really big about sci-fi and giant animals and stuff like that. Then we started moving towards psychothrillers and more gory things like The Exorcist or The Shining or Nightmare on Elm Street. And this history has been with us for hundreds of years, that we really like to watch horror movies. But why do we like to watch horror movies? I mean, the whole point of horror movies is to make us feel afraid in our homes where we're supposed to feel safest. And one way that we can explain it is it's kind of like riding a roller coaster. So when we go on a roller coaster, as we go and do that drop, we get this shot of epinephrine, which is a hormone that is released during the fight or flight response, and it gets you ready, gets you amped up, and you're kind of imagining in your head while you're watching this movie kind of what are you going to do, what's the person going to do, and you get really excited. And because you're watching a movie in a really safe place, you know really that even though you're a little scared, that you are safe where you are. And that leads to this hormone release called serotonin, which is a really relaxing hormone. It helps you sleep. And it kind of like, okay, take a step back, we're safe. There isn't a boogeyman in our closet, only that poor girl on the TV. And the final hormone we get at the end of it, once we relax, is dopamine. And dopamine's really well known for motivation and reward, saying, congratulations, you survived the scary thing. You did not get killed by the zombie on the street. And kind of all these around together kind of let us experience the scary thing and kind of let it play out in our heads without actually having to go and experience, you know, a serial killer in an alley. And this is really similar to something called exposure therapy. So exposure therapy is kind of a special type of therapy used for fear or people with really bad phobias to kind of help them get less scared. So the idea is by gradually exposing them to something they're afraid of in different levels of scare, in different scary levels, it can help them get used to it and become less scared of it in the future. So for example, if you were scared of spiders, you might want to start with something a little less scary, like a cartoon of a spider. Love Lucas the Spider. Even my friends who are afraid of spiders love this cartoon. And from there, you might move on to pictures or videos of spiders. This is a peacock spider. It is my absolute favorite spider. It does a really cute dance. And then from there, you might want to move on to something real life. So you might get a real life spider inside a jar. So it can't touch you. It's staying where it is, might not get close to you, but it's really there. It's right in front of you. And then once you become comfortable with that, you might be introduced to an actual spider and maybe be able to actually hold one. Although I don't think I'm ever going to get to that place quite yet. Maybe I need a bit more exposure therapy to get to holding a spider. And this is kind of related to what I do with police officers. So we want to make sure police officers are making the right decisions when they're out in the field, because they're making really important decisions. They carry weapons, so we want to make sure that they don't hurt anyone who's might be just standing around, and make sure they do their job right. So one way we do that is by exposing them to really threatening scenarios that they might experience while they're at work. That way they get used to it, and they can manage how aroused they get, how much their heart rate gets. So they get a little bit of a heart rate, but not too much that they're going to start making mistakes. And doing so, exposing them over and over and over again, helps them practice and get better at their decisions. So while all this information may not help you watch your next scary movie, or prevent you from having to sleep with your parents or your friend's bed, maybe a little bit understanding fear and understanding why we're afraid can help us be better and less afraid. Like they say, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right? Thanks, guys. So yeah, that's what I got for you.